Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. So yesterday I released a new video in my series, Just How Good Is the Line 6 Helix? And I took that video to compare one of the reverbs in the Helix with some reverbs from other very highly rated brands and plugins. The reason I did that is because you hear a lot of folks talking about just how, mediocre the reverbs are inside the Helix. Now, I don't truly believe that they are. I think they do a very good job for what they are, and they actually compete quite nicely with some other very well-respected units. Having said that, is there anything we could do to improve them, or maybe not even improve them being the right word, but make them more flexible, add more parameters to them? That's an interesting question. In this video, we're going to talk about how we can do just that, and I think some folks will probably get some ideas from this, if they haven't been doing anything like this already, to really bring their reverbs to life and give themselves, maybe the most important thing, a lot more flexibility in being able to dial in a sound that they want. So without further ado, let's go over to HX Edit. Now the first thing I'm going to talk about today is actually a little bit of a departure from what I originally really want to focus on this video, but this will be a quick one, and it's about the spring reverb. One of the things that a lot of folks complain about is that they don't get that kind of springiness, if that's a word, out of the spring reverb of the Helix. Okay, well here's a simple solution that's really not going to take long to explain. What I've done here is I've set up a 2 snapshot preset. I have a little Matchstick Channel 1 amp that I just kind of tweaked really fast, and if I just turn all the reverbs off, this is the sound of that. And this is the same tone I'm going to be using throughout the video with different reverb examples. Kind of like an edge of breakup tone. All right, so here is the spring reverb. Now, conventional wisdom would tell you, normally we put our reverbs after our amplifier, and usually a lot of times after everything else in the chain, and we just have it sort of towards the end. But rules are made to be broken, right? So here is a spring reverb with a decay of 4.2, pre-delay of 0 milliseconds, low cut of 96 hertz, high cut of 4.3 kilohertz, mix of 39%. Now, I have that exact same spring reverb placed before the amp as well. And on snapshot 1, we're going to hear the spring reverb after the amp. And on snapshot 2, we're going to hear the exact same spring reverb before the amp. So something as simple as moving it before the amp can really bring this reverb to life. Let's listen to it. Here it is after the amp. I'm going to switch to snapshot 2 before the amp. After the amp, before the amp. It sounds wetter, but it also brings out that springiness somewhat. So for anybody who has been finding that the spring reverb isn't giving them that springiness, maybe try just moving it before your amp. Now, the only problem here is the heavier a guitar sound, the more distorted the guitar sound we get, that kind of starts to react in a way that may not be pleasant for some. So just keep that in mind. But if you want that on more clean to edge of breakup tones, it's going to work really well. Okay, on to what I really wanted to talk about in this video now. So here I have this same, I call it Reverb 1 just as a reverb example, but here's that same Matchstick Channel 1 tone, no reverb on it. Now, I did a video recently talking about a misconception, a myth that's been out there, and I'm just going to grab, like, let's say, a hall reverb, and I'm going to place it in line in my path A right after the amp. I'm going to give that some more. Okay, so we have some hall reverb there. It's going to bump up that decay a little more, just so we can really hear what's going on with the reverbs. Okay. Now, one thing, I've done videos about reverbs before. The low cut and high cut can really be our friend here, okay? If I take this high cut all the way up from the 4.3 kilohertz it's at, you hear a lot more high-end information. We don't have to be afraid of bringing this down. I think a lot of people in my discussions thought that that's going to affect your overall tone. All it's doing is affecting the reverb portion of the tone. It's not going to make your actual direct tone any duller. It's just going to take those highs out of the reverb. Okay, so we have this set. Sounds fine. One misconception that I recently debunked was if we pull this down to a split path, that somehow that improves the sound of the reverb, and it doesn't. And I proved that by using null tests. All that happens is down here we'd set our mix to 100%, and then we would use a split A-B to blend how much of the reverb we actually wanted in there. So it doesn't do anything for us other than gives us just a clumsier way of mixing the direct signal with the reverberated signal, and that can just be done with the mix control. But you might say, well, what is the purpose of bringing it down here? Well, first of all, if I do that and I change the split block to a split A-B, I have to set my mix to 100%. Now what this does, I'll turn my trails on for this. What this does is allows me now to use my split A-B here to either route all my signal to the top path, no reverb, or to the bottom B path, nothing but reverb. And in the middle, it would be just an even 50-50 split. Okay, that's no different, like I said, than using our mix control up on the non-parallel or serial path, okay? So you may say, well, why would I do this? Well, this is interesting now. This gives us a way to kind of create an interesting little effects soup down here, let's call it, for lack of a better term. Actually, there probably is a better term. I'm just not coming up with one right now. What if I wanted to process only the reverb in different ways? Maybe I want to add some modulation to it. Now, I know what a lot of folks are going to say. We do have other reverbs in the Helix that give us the ability to add modulation, maybe delay and other things. But they're limited to what the parameters it gives us. What if we wanted to take that even further? Well, we have a lot of different effects we could place after this. So think about this. Right now, we are sending our dry signal into the reverb, which is converting it into a 100% reverberated sound while not affecting our dry signal. So I could come up down to this path, and after the reverb, let's say, I could throw something like a chorus on it, you know, with a lot of depth, let's say. So let's listen to this again without that. Now let me put the chorus on. Now you might think that that's modulating our direct signal. It's not. It's only modulating the reverb, but what we do have is a very heavy mix right now. So we could take this split now and say, okay, now that we've got that on, let's bring this down to, I don't know, maybe 45. So we get more direct signal and less of the modulated reverb. Now you hear that modulation now. Now, we notice we kind of kept that in mono, so that's taking away from our stereo spread. What if we do this and put that as a stereo effect? Notice how much more lush this gets now. Let's bring the depth way up. I'm going to bring the speed down. Let's see that. Now let's listen to our reverb without that. So now we turn that off and the reverb kind of tends to sound a little bit lifeless. The beautiful part about this is we can change our wave shape. So that's one idea, but what if I kept going with this and said, well, what if we came in and added something like a stereo transistor tape delay set to quarter notes, maybe with fairly low feedback, and we'll stick with the mix there. Let's get a lot of wow and flutter in there and spread that out in stereo. I get rid of that. If I get rid of that and the modulation, here's my reverb. Put those back in. Maybe even mix in a little more. But the thing to keep in mind is we can add whatever delay, whatever chorus we want. What if we were to say, we'll do that, but maybe add even another variety of modulation in there, maybe a 70s chorus. We hear that change yet again. We can change it to vibrato. And we can add as much or as little of that little effects soup in as we want. And again, if we turn all those off, here's our normal reverb. And like I said, we can blend as much or as little of that in as we can. So I came up with one little idea here where I have the hall reverb on 10. I fed that into a chorus with these settings here, speed on 0.7, depth on 10. Fed that into a Trinity chorus. Fed that into a auto pan, tremolo auto pan, all of these being in stereo, as you'll notice, and then into a stereo transistor tape delay. Now, let me just play this for you with these off. You can hear a very big reverb. Now I'm going to bring these in one at a time. Now I'm going to bring in the tremolo. So we've really taken this, now that's a crazy example, we've taken this reverb and we've really added some interesting qualities to it, which can be tweaked in a million different ways when we think about it. But one other thing I did here is I assigned my split path here, my split AB to expression pedal 1, and then in bypass controller assign, I assigned that so that the minimum it could go to is 45 and the maximum to 100. So what that does is it kind of gives us real-time control over how much of this we want. So when I put my foot pedal down to the toe, I get full on, no direct signal. But as soon as I rock back, and you could even change this so that if you wanted it to go with less of that effect at the extreme heel position, we could do something like so. So I could get these sort of sustaining chords. And I can come up with some pretty interesting effects. Now the sky's the limit here. This is just some ideas I came up with, but you could really, once you've split that reverb off, affect it in any way you want, changing the orders of these effects and just having some fun with it. So that's a video I wanted to do just to show you guys that if you really are interested in coming up with some really wacky, interesting, possibly musically inspiring ideas using effects, this is one way we can do it. And I know a lot of folks are probably already doing this, but there's also a lot of folks that I get questions from asking me how they can do things similar to this. So the sky's the limit and your imagination is really the limit here, and you could probably come up with some pretty cool sounds using this method. So I'm going to put this up on Custom Tone, this one right here, in case anybody's interested. I don't know, maybe nobody is, maybe it's just too weird and wacky, but I'll put it up there, and if anybody's interested, they can grab it, change it around, use it as a starting point, change the ampo, do whatever you'd like with it. And hopefully that'll be something fun to play around with and something a little different. So coming up in a couple days is going to be the results video for the reverb comparison I did yesterday. In the meantime, I thought you guys might enjoy this. to come up with, hopefully spark some new ideas. So please like the video, share it with anybody who you think would get some use out of it, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back real soon with some more. Thank you guys again so much for your time, for tuning in. Ciao for now.